Welcome back, Swidooster family. If you've been craving drama, heartbreak, suspense, and a few shocking truths thrown in for good measure, then you're exactly where you need to be. As we dive into the thrilling events of June 2025, get ready for a roller coaster of emotions and revelations in Routerbosch. Don't forget, supporting this channel means we get to keep bringing you these juicy updates. Become a member, tap that super thanks button, and let those ads roll for at least 30 seconds. It all helps us bring more Swidooster drama your way. Now, settle in, because things are only just getting started. On Monday, the 2nd of June 2025, episode 44, 2334, dropped us straight into a storm of quiet torment and unanswered questions. Gary's behavior grew increasingly erratic, haunted not by ghosts, but by the gnawing guilt and fear of what he'd uncovered in recent days. The once confident man found himself slipping into restless nights and edgy glances over his shoulder as the shadows of a long-buried truth began to creep into his consciousness. Meanwhile, Sia's melancholy deepened as he watched Bianca drift further away emotionally, a pain he didn't mask well. Leanne, always sharp, started sensing irregularities at JPD, odd transactions, hushed conversations, and a tension that signaled something was seriously off. Her instincts warned her this wasn't just office politics, this was sabotage. And that was just the start. By the time Tuesday, 3rd June 2025, episode 45, 2335 aired, things had taken a sharp turn. Benny, ever the wild card, thought he was doing something spontaneous, but instead dragged Sia and Bianca into a scenario that laid bare all the cracks in their fragile relationship. In the cold light of consequence, their feelings were tested like never before. Benny's impulsiveness turned what should have been a bonding experience into a breaking point. At the same time, Bridget, still licking her wounds from past betrayals, wasn't sitting still. Her next chess move against Nazim was calculated and fierce. Across town, Gary and Aiden's exploration unearthed something jaw-dropping, evidence that the Reggie they thought they knew might not be who he claimed to be. What they found sent chills down their spines and changed everything they believed about the past. Come Wednesday, the 4th of June 2025, episode 46, 2336, the air in the Boosin household was thick with dread. Gary and Aiden were spooked, and not just by what they'd seen, it was the implications. Were they dealing with a hidden legacy, or perhaps something darker? As they struggled to make sense of it, Bridget, reeling from recent turmoil, announced she wanted out of Routerbosch. The weight of the past and her toxic entanglements with Nazim were finally suffocating her spirit. Meanwhile, Bianca found herself lost in thought. Sia still occupied her mind more than she was willing to admit. Despite everything, the connection hadn't broken, but it was tangled in a mess she didn't know how to fix. Thursday, the 5th of June, 2025, episode 47, 2337, brought no relief. Maimona was visibly shaken, trying to maintain peace while Nazim prowled the house like a lion ready to pounce. The man's presence was a psychological war zone for everyone under that roof. As Gary and Aiden continued to dig deeper, the pieces surrounding Reggie's true identity began forming a mosaic they hadn't expected. Meanwhile, Bianca's emotional compass spun wildly, torn between what was right and what her heart whispered when no one else was around. By Friday, the 6th of June 2025, episode 48, 2338, the tension finally reached boiling point. Bianca felt like she was being ripped in two. Her head said one thing, her heart another, and both were loud. Wade, on the other hand, fumed when Zoe tried to paint her aunt as some kind of benevolent saint, knowing full well the history that Zoe conveniently left out. Gary and Aiden's relentless pursuit of the truth didn't slow. What they uncovered this time was even more disturbing, a link between Reggie and a traumatic incident buried in the town's past, one that could fracture relationships permanently if it ever came to light. On Monday, the 9th of June 2025, Episode 49, 2339, Bianca finally made the decision that had been tormenting her for days. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, she drew the line in her love life. It wasn't about right or wrong anymore. It was about survival, about peace. Whether it was Sia or someone else, she could no longer live split between two worlds. Her decision came not with fanfare, but with a quiet heartbreak that reverberated through her every word. At JPD, Leanne wrestled with her own guilt. She hadn't intended to spark tension between Zoe and Wade, but the consequences of her earlier choices now cast long shadows over their fragile bond. Meanwhile, Gary and Aiden tried to keep a lid on what they'd just discovered, something that directly implicated Reggie. The secret was dangerous, and they knew if it leaked, Reggie's world could implode. Then, on Tuesday, the 10th of June, 2025, episode 50, 2340, Rian found himself blindsided by the latest developments, particularly Bianca's decision. He didn't expect the emotional gut punch, and the weight of that realization left him spiraling. At the same time, Nazim couldn't decipher Bridget's next move. She was being too quiet, too calculated, and for a man like Nazim, that was more threatening than an outright attack. Gary and Aiden, already planning their quiet exit back to Cape Town, were stopped dead in their tracks by Reggie. The man showed up, but not as the timid figure they'd grown used to. He came armed with something that surprised even them: confidence. Whatever Reggie had learned in their absence had changed him. It was no longer a case of them uncovering his secrets. Now it seemed like he might expose a few of his own. Wednesday, the 11th of June, 2025, episode 51, 2341, was a day of emotional minefields. Kashifa made a stop at Dullah's, but the visit raised more questions than answers. Rafiq and Maimouna observed her carefully, exchanging worried glances, unsure whether she was seeking closure or hiding something. Rian, whose day had started with uncertainty, found a sliver of calm in the chaos. A small but meaningful gesture from a friend reminded him that life wasn't all heartbreak and betrayal. Over at Bridget's, Nazim's day veered into unexpected territory. A seemingly ordinary conversation took a turn that left him stunned, disarmed, and unsure of his footing. For a man who thrived on control, that loss of balance was the most dangerous feeling of all. On Thursday, the 12th of June, 2025, episode 52, 2342, Reggie ventured into the city with a fire in his chest. His adventure wasn't just a sightseeing trip, it was a personal quest, a chance to step outside of everyone's expectations and define his own narrative. Meanwhile, Bridget and Nazim were back at each other's throats. Their war of words turned public, ugly, and personal. Every insult cut deeper than the last, not because of what was said, but because of what was true. In the midst of the chaos, all eyes shifted to Kashifa. Her behavior had become unpredictable, and everyone, especially Maimouna, wondered what she was planning. The tension surrounding her wasn't just emotional, it felt like a fuse had been lit, and no one knew how long before it reached the powder keg. And by Friday, the 13th of June 2025, episode 53, 2343, all masks were off. Bridget caught Nazim completely off guard with a revelation so explosive it left him speechless. Whatever he thought he knew, whatever leverage he believed he had, it was gone. Bridget had flipped the script. Meanwhile, Gary and Justin took Reggie under their wing, teaching him how to flirt. Yes, flirt. A skill he'd never quite mastered. But this wasn't just about romance. It was about Reggie learning confidence, poise, and how to play the social game. And while things seemed light-hearted on the surface, there was a deeper mission at play. Gary and Justin knew that the stronger Reggie felt, the more likely he'd finally reveal what he'd been hiding. Kashifa too shocked everyone by making an unexpected request of Rafiq, one that left him visibly shaken. Whatever she had in mind, it wasn't going to be simple, and it certainly wasn't going to be easy. Monday, the 16th of June 2025, episode 54, 2344, opened with a surprising twist of sweetness. Angie and Reggie were on a date, and for once, things were going well. Reggie, coached up by Gary and Justin, was charming in a disarmingly awkward way, and it worked. Angie, usually wary, found herself laughing more than expected. But elsewhere, the tone was far darker. Sia, still reeling from Bianca's final decision, let his guard down just long enough to fall into a trap. Someone he trusted took him for a ride, emotionally, maybe financially, and the fallout would soon follow. That night, Dullah made his way to Kashifa's place for a sleepover, but the excitement quickly gave way to pressure. Could Kashifa, who was juggling unresolved feelings and new responsibilities, really handle this? By Tuesday, the 17th of June 2025, episode 55, 2345, the consequences began to show. Kashifa, always eager to do right, blamed herself for Dullah's rough night. Every sniffle, every yawn sent waves of guilt crashing over her. Meanwhile, Reggie was prepping for his second date with Angie, but this time nerves gripped him like a vice. First date charm was one thing, consistency was another. Back in the shadows, Nazim was being seduced by temptation, perhaps in the form of a secret deal or forbidden liaison. But what he didn't anticipate was the boomerang effect. He got more than he bargained for, and this time it came with strings he couldn't cut. On Wednesday, the 18th of June 2025, episode 56, 2346. Bridget's patience with Nazim ran thin. She had given him enough rope. Now she was ready to watch him hang by it. Their verbal sparring matches lost the veil of civility and became open warfare. At the JPD offices, Zoe and Leanne clashed. Again, their visions for leadership collided head-on, with Zoe refusing to step aside and Leanne refusing to back down. Maimouna, observing from the sidelines, felt a creeping unease. With Kashifa back in their lives, trouble was brewing, and not just the kind that leads to awkward dinners. Something deeper, something instinctual told her they hadn't seen the worst of it yet. Thursday, the 19th of June 2025, episode 57, 2347, confirmed those fears. Leanne was convinced Zoe was trying to undermine her authority at JPD. Every suggestion Zoe made, every initiative she took, felt like a jab cloaked in a smile. Meanwhile, Reggie was still trying his best to impress Angie, but charm only gets you so far when you're dragging a mountain of insecurities behind you. Rafiq, however, stole the spotlight that day. He did something that caught Kashifa so off guard she was momentarily speechless. A rare occurrence for her. Whatever it wasn't small. And Nazim? He was plotting again, but this time it was personal. He planned a surprise for Bridget that, depending on her mood, could either be a peace offering or a detonator. Come Friday, the 20th of June 2025, episode 58, 2348, things began to crack wide open. Bridget had had enough. In her mind, there was only one solution to the Nazim problem. She didn't say it aloud, yet, but her eyes gave everything away. Kashifa, still shaken from Rafiq's move, felt belittled, patronized, like he didn't take her seriously, and she wasn't one to let that slide. Meanwhile, Angie, now growing bolder, took Reggie to task. The sweet charm was nice, but she wanted honesty, depth, substance. If Reggie thought he could win her over with banter and borrowed confidence, he was about to get a wake-up call. Monday, the 23rd of June 2025, episode 59, 2349, saw emotions running hot in the Samsodian household. Kashifa and Rafiq locked horns in a fierce battle over what was best for their baby. Their definitions of doing the right thing couldn't have been further apart, and neither was backing down. Kashifa wanted consistency, clarity, and control, while Rafiq was clinging to instinct and tradition. Meanwhile, Angie was up to something softer. Wanting to lift Reggie's spirits after a shaky week, she planned a heartfelt surprise, showing that despite his flaws, she saw something in him worth nurturing. Across town, Bridget and Nazim, after weeks of venom, finally reached a shared realization. Maybe the war was costing them more than the win. But can two people so used to battle ever truly surrender? Then on Tuesday, the 24th of June 2025, episode 60, 2350, an unexpected calm settled, if only for a moment. Bridget and Nazim, to the astonishment of nearly everyone, sat down and made a decision together. It wasn't a truce exactly, but it wasn't war either. It was something new, uneasy cooperation. Angie and Reggie, fresh off their emotional highs and lows, had their own serious conversation. Were they just having fun, or was there a real future here? It was messy, vulnerable and honest, exactly what Reggie needed, even if he didn't know it. Meanwhile, the friction between Rafiq and Kashifa exploded again, this time over Dula. Their differing views on parenting, boundaries, and what Dula needed pulled them further apart, both struggling to bridge the emotional gap that had grown between them. By Wednesday, the 25th of June 2025, episode 61, 2351, it was clear that change was in the air. Justin had a moment of unexpected clarity with Nazim, offering him a fresh perspective that Nazim, surprisingly, didn't immediately reject. Something about Bridget's recent behavior had been gnawing at him, and Justin's insight planted a seed he couldn't ignore. Kashifa and Rafiq, amid all their chaos, shared a rare, quiet moment. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a reminder that love still lingered underneath the rubble. Meanwhile, at JPD, Zoe showed Bridget that she wasn't just an employee, she was a force. Her assertiveness, bordering on defiance, sent Bridget reeling. The power dynamic had shifted, and it was Zoe who now stood taller. Thursday, the 26th of June 2025, episode 62, 2352, brought remorse, rejection, and retribution. Rafiq, knowing he'd crossed a line with Kashifa, made a sincere attempt to make things right. But apologies don't always land when wounds are still bleeding. Kashifa appreciated the gesture, but her trust wasn't so easily restored. Over in the cafe, Justin gave Frankie the cold shoulder, a bitter snap in their usually warm camaraderie. Something had shifted between them, and Justin wasn't ready to explain why. At JPD, the tension between Zoe and Bridget finally reached boiling point. Words were exchanged that couldn't be taken back, and for the first time, Bridget found herself cornered, outgunned by someone she once dismissed. Then came Friday, the 27th of June 2025, episode 63, 2353. A day filled with regret and confusion. Reggie and Frankie both sat with the aftermath of recent decisions, staring down consequences they didn't anticipate. For Reggie, it was about more than just Angie. It was about self-worth, identity, and the feeling of always being a step behind. Rafiq and Kashifa were thrown together again, this time by circumstance rather than choice, and forced to spend time they hadn't prepared for. The air between them was thick with unspoken things. Finally, Bridget was rattled to her core after Zoe dropped a truth bomb about Nazim. It wasn't just hurtful, it reframed everything she thought she knew. Processing it would take time, but Bridget never sits still when shaken. And by Monday, the 30th of June 2025, episode 64, 2354, a new normal began to take shape. Rafiq and Kashifa laid their cards on the table, not to each other, but to their families. The expectations, the rules, the realities, they wanted everyone to understand the new boundaries. No more assumptions. Meanwhile, Reggie, inspired by his recent emotional growth, was determined to face a new challenge, learning to swim. Anxiety gripped him, but for the first time, he wasn't running from it. And Bridget, ever the enigma, took what Zoe had told her about Nazim and began shedding light on the tangled web she'd been caught in. Her eyes were open now, and that meant someone was about to get burned. And that, Wadusta fans, brings June 2025 to a simmering close. But if you think the storm has passed, think again. Relationships have cracked, alliances have shifted, and secrets are bubbling just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. Bridget is done playing nice, Kashifa's reaching her breaking point, and Reggie? He's finally stepping into his own, but is it too little, too late? If you love being right here on the front lines of Routerbosch drama, help keep the cameras rolling. Join the channel membership, donate via Super Thanks if you enjoyed this deep dive, and do us a solid, let the ads play for at least 30 seconds. Every second helps us bring the fire back to your screens with every new episode. Let us know in the comments, who do you think is about to snap? Who's hiding the biggest secret? And if you missed any part of the drama, don't worry, because we've got you covered and we never miss a beat.